At this point, Kevin Otchere needed the president of Ghana and the quiet giants who pulled the strings of power to step in and save him from the storm gathering over his head. Without that intervention, he was walking straight into a mess far deeper than anything his team ever imagined. Dubai had already restricted his movement and locked him into a $20 million bail arrangement, a silent message that the matter surrounding him had crossed into dangerous territory. He had become a man held in a foreign land, watching a situation that once looked like a simple business disagreement grow taller than him. Long before this nightmare, Kevin Otchere was seen as one of Ghana's brightest sons. He built Springfield Group from scratch, stepped into the global oil market without fear, and walked among giants who never expected an African to last 5 minutes in that space. His rise was proof that a young Ghanaian could enter the oil sector and make discoveries that could compete with the largest global companies. He was celebrated everywhere as the face of a new African future. People called him the man who showed that Ghana didn't need to rely on external players forever. He became the symbol of what was possible when ambition met vision and discipline. But behind every success story in Africa lies an army of silent enemies. The moment Kevin broke through international barriers and secured deep water exploration rights that many Western companies had chased for decades, he entered a world where very few people like to see an African standing tall. And this was where the seeds of the current crisis were planted. At first, it was whispers about a disagreement between Springfield and the Swiss-based Petraco oil company. It looked like another normal commercial fight in the oil sector, the type that usually ends in arbitration, emails, and boardroom meetings. But someone, somewhere, decided this matter would not follow the usual route. The $94 million dispute traveled across borders, touching Dubai, landing in London, and leaving Ghana struggling to explain why it had not moved quickly when petitions were sent to the Economic and Organized Crime Office and CID. When Petraco approached the Economic and Organized Crime Office, insiders claimed the case did not receive the urgency expected. The file sat. The follow-up slowed. And in the world of international oil trading, slow action is interpreted as negligence, indifference, or a deliberate attempt to protect someone. Petraco then shifted the matter outside Ghana's borders, and once that happened, the case took a life of its own. Dubai moved swiftly, the UK prepared documents quietly, and Ghana was left reacting instead of controlling the narrative. Dubai's detention of Okyere did not happen with noise. Dubai does not do drama. According to people with knowledge of the case, Kevin was stopped, informed, and held in a calm but firm process. His passport was taken, his movements restricted, and the $20 million bail was issued. Meanwhile, Ghana was still arguing among itself about whether he had even been arrested. The Economic and Organized Crime Office came out with a statement denying everything. They said no such arrest existed. They claimed the media reports were false. But the problem was that international documents, Dubai court records, and UK submissions were already painting a very different picture. Wicked Blogger Ghana began picking up signals from lawyers, insiders, and foreign contacts. And everything pointed to one truth. Kevin was indeed in custody in Dubai, regardless of how the Economic and Organized Crime Office tried to present it. And this is where Ghana's embarrassment began to deepen. Because while the country was issuing denials, the Westminster Magistrates Court was already referencing the case. While the Economic and Organized Crime Office was calling reports false, officials in Dubai had already processed his bail. While Ghana was attempting to manage the local conversation, the UK had already made its request for extradition. The UK's interest was tied to the $29 million cargo matter between Springfield and Petraco. The British treated it seriously, and once Dubai cooperated, the case traveled far beyond the reach of Ghanaian institutions. Kevin's lawyers kept insisting that the matter was commercial and should be settled through civil negotiation, not through criminal allegations. But the UK was not backing down, and Dubai was not dismissing the request. While all this was unfolding, Ghanaian millionaire Nana Kwame Bediako, popularly known as Cheddar, entered the conversation. His voice changed the entire tone of the discussion. Cheddar's message was raw, emotional, and painfully honest. He called Kevin one of the most intelligent and visionary young men Ghana had ever produced. He reminded Ghanaians that Kevin secured an oil block before the age of 40 and had the potential to bring billions into the nation. He described him as a deep thinker and a rare national asset, and then delivered a heavy blow when he said Ghana had mastered the art of destroying its brightest children. His words carry the pain of history when he spoke about Nkrumah, the collapsed banks, Darko farms, and Apino soaps. He said, the country excels at tearing down those who dare to dream too high. And in his voice, many Ghanaians heard the quiet truth that has always haunted the nation. As the situation escalated, foreign investors began watching Ghana with suspicion. They wondered why the Economic and Organized Crime Office acted slowly when the first petitions arrived. They questioned the institution's public denial despite evidence abroad. They examined the contradictions and began to doubt the consistency of Ghana's regulatory systems. And in global business, doubt is dangerous. It shapes perceptions, influences investment decisions, and affects long-term partnerships. Kevin's case, suddenly, was no longer about Kevin alone. It had become a reflection of Ghana's larger structural weaknesses. Inside Ghana, the public was divided. Some believed that Kevin was being targeted because of the scale of his achievements. They saw him as an African visionary standing in the way of foreign interests. Others insisted that if wrongdoing existed, then he should face the consequences regardless of his success. But even with this divide, there was a shared recognition that the matter had grown far beyond what anyone expected. The investigations in London were reportedly linking Springfield's offshore transactions to potential irregularities. Whether these claims will stand in court remains to be seen, but the UK authorities considered them serious enough to pursue extradition. And Dubai's cooperation made the situation even more complicated. Inside the UAE, the legal process moves at a speed Ghana is not used to. Once a request matches their requirements, they act without delay. This is why insiders believe that Kevin's extradition could happen in days, not weeks. And if he steps foot in the UK, the scrutiny awaiting him will be intense. The case has become a heavy diplomatic burden. If Ghana is found to have ignored early petitions or issued misleading public statements, the consequences could strain relations with foreign institutions. Investors might step back, global partners might demand stricter monitoring, and the idea that a $94 million dispute involving a Ghanaian company spiraled into an international controversy could cast a long shadow on the country's energy sector. For Kevin himself, the future hangs in a delicate balance. If he manages to convince the UK courts that the matter is purely civil, he could walk free after paying settlements, even though the weight of the scandal will still affect his empire. But if the prosecution presents evidence of misconduct, his freedom, reputation, and business legacy could all suffer irreversible damage. Springfield Energy, once seen as a symbol of African independence in oil, could face restructuring or collapse. The man once hailed as a national treasure could become another example of a dream crushed by circumstance, politics, and global pressure. Yet, even in this chaos, there is a truth Ghanaians cannot overlook. Kevin's rise was meteoric. His achievements reached heights very few Africans have ever touched. His influence threatened established power structures in a global industry that has never been comfortable with African self-sufficiency. And while there may be genuine issues to investigate, there is also the possibility that the forces against him are far greater than what the public sees. Kevin Otchere's story has now become more than an international case. It has become a reflection of Ghana's identity crisis, its internal struggles with protecting its own innovators, and the wider battle Africa continues to fight in global business. As he remains trapped in Dubai, waiting to see whether the next plane he boards is heading to freedom or to a courtroom in London, Ghana watches helplessly, wondering whether it is witnessing the fall of another brilliant mind or the unfolding of a political and commercial storm far bigger than one man. Whatever happens next, the truth is simple. A nation that does not protect its brightest sons will always find itself grieving their downfall in silence.